Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Michigan Innovation Podcast. And today we have Jack Rutkowski with us, today with Flabocce. Hi there, Jack.
How you doing, Rose? Pleased to be here.
Hi. Great. I see you've got all your Flabocces behind you.
Yeah. Coming at you from the fulfillment center, which is the glorified, refinished, basement of a guest house right now. But it's working well. It's a great little space, so it's good to be down here with product. And when we work on, our ecom stuff, you can't see, but in front of me is a big, 90-inch TV screen that we have our website and everything up on. So we're just down here playing some Flabocce and shipping things out and tweaking various elements and responding to emails. So it's a good place to be.
Awesome. Well, great to have you with us today. So before we get started, let's learn a little bit more about Jack. What's up with you and what's your story, Jack?
Yeah. I am a kind of accidental founder, so to speak. I found my way into the entrepreneurial space, the innovation space, kind of counterintuitively, you would say. I used to work, or I still do. I work in the video space. My primary, occupation has always been centered around video workflow and then producing and then kind of working my way into creative directing, various projects. And that led me to kind of producing programs and products for a company called Beachbody, which at the time was manufacturing not only, digital goods, right, the fitness videos, nutrition tracking, all those things, but also physical goods, which something like a resistance band or some sort of yoga mat or something like that would go along with some of the programs. And so when I was producing some programs, I ended up producing a non-slip agility marker. So something you would make like a cone that you would be doing kind of like fast feet drills to the workout video in your living room. And I wanted to make
Ah,
something that was, low profile and non-slip. So it wasn't something you would trip over or step on and slip. And so I ended up making these rubbery hexagons called the Beachbody Agility Markers. And on a shoot one day, I had some downtime. We were waiting for the sun to be right, so we were all set up, ready to go. We had to wait for the sun to just get so it filled the shot correctly. And I was with the camera guys, and I had these things, and we just started kind of playing with them. And I was surprised how well these hexagons could be thrown, like accurately, and how fun they were to kind of whip around this field we were in. And I thought, I think these things are better used as play devices than workout devices, right? And so that became kind of a little hobby of mine on the side. And I ended up going through the process of creating a game based on the ones that I had. And then once I kind of had the game down, I decided to make a prototype, and I had a prototype made. And then COVID hit. And so it was just this thing that sat on the back shelf for years. And then I had the opportunity moving to Traverse City, um, to kind of interface with some manufacturers in Michigan that I wasn't really tied into when I was in Los Angeles. And so I did kind of bridge a gap there. I did move. We moved during COVID from Los Angeles to Traverse City. That's what brought me to the Northern Michigan area to be closer to my family. And we, we started kind of tinkering with the idea of maybe I could make this thing, now that we're here, maybe I could find a way to make this thing as a local product. And that led me to a local manufacturer and ended up getting a first run of product made. And that was only about 7 months ago. So here we are in 2025, which will be the first full year of business for Flabocce. And it's been kind of a great journey so far. So I found my way here by not saying I'm going to go out and create this great thing, but by kind of stumbling into this fun little game that just kept capturing my attention, and to the point where it just kind of stuck around long enough for me to say, I'm going to make a go at this and see what's going to happen. And every step of the way has been just kind of happy accidents or great surprises, between finding the shop here that's allowed me to manufacture it, to the great response of the Northern Michigan, startup community, and, people like yourself coming up to really be encouraging and have like a great community to kind of launch into. all the way to the great customer response that I've gotten so far. We just hit a benchmark. We are almost to the point of pulling the trigger on our third production run since we started. So within only, 7 months from the moment I actually was able to hand a packaged product to a customer to now we're entering the stage where we're, looking at kind of hitting the go button the third time. We haven't been doing massive production runs, but without any advertising, without any, traditional budget that you would have to really launch a product full force, we're feeling really good about kind of where we are with the response and the potential for Flabocce to be a success.
Fantastic. Wow, what a story. Thank you for that, Jack.
Yeah.
That is inspiring, especially the way that you just took it by an idea, table it for a little while during a move and during the pandemic. And the timing was right, and it sounds like you're hitting the ground running now. Congratulations on that. So
Thank you.
why the name Flabocce?
Pardon me?
Why the name Flabocce?
The name Flabocce. One of those funny stories. So when I had these things and I was making the game and people liked it, I decided I'm gonna need to make a prototype of this. I want to make basically I want to make some demarcations on the disc to create these kind of zones, because when you're playing, there's better shots within a shot. So if you can imagine, this is on the ground, this is your target, right? This is what you're throwing at. So you might throw it this well and it might land here, or it might land here. And so I wanted to create more of a thing to make the points be better the closer you got to completely covering the disc, right? And someone was like, well, what are you going to call this thing? You're going to make this product, like, what's it going to be called? And I hadn't thought much about it yet. And I said, well, it's kind of like bocce, the game of bocce ball, but it's flat. So I don't know, Flabocce, right? It was just like the first thing that came into my head, just combining the two words of flat and bocce. And they said, and they're like, really, you're gonna call it Flabocce? And I was like, nah, probably not. But lo and behold, as the joke name, and this is something I've experienced in my corporate life, sometimes the code name or the joke name becomes the ubiquitous idea. It just becomes the thing that people start calling it, and suddenly you can't call it anything else. And the thing that really keyed me into sticking with it was people remembered it, right? They remembered this kind of goofy, fun name, and they would ask me about it. They'd say, "Hey, how's Flabocce going?" Right? And I'm just like, "Oh, that kind of joke name." And suddenly I'm like, you know what? This is the only thing I can call it. And I kept with it because of that, because it was fun, because it was kind of weird. When you hear it, you're like, what? Like, some people say it sounds like phlebotomy, right? The study of blood. Some people they kind of botch the name, for lack of a better term, and say something else. But it's just when you're talking about a game, when you're talking about something fun, I mean, the Frisbee, Flabocce, all the great games and things that we've played growing up, they kind of have these goofy, memorable names. And so I just stuck with it. And now I can't even put myself back in that position about 4 or 5 years ago and try to brainstorm anything else. You know what I mean? Like, it's an energy unto itself at this stage.
It certainly is. It is a topic for conversation and a lot of our startup meetings, and I enjoy every one of them. And bocce ball isn't always the first sport that comes to mind, but why do you think Flabocce is growing so fast? What is the secret? Like, what's your secret sauce? What is making this such a phenomenon?
Well, there's multiple things going on. There's multiple trends happening. But when it came to making a product, the thing I was, most dialed into was like, why is this kind of so fun? Like, when you get a group of people together and you start playing, immediately there's like, you're throwing something at a target. You're just, and there's suddenly like there's the anticipation of like, is it going to get there? What's going to happen? If it's a dud of a shot and it bounces off somewhere weird, it's kind of funny. If it's a great shot, it's exciting, and it's that kind of engagement that kept me into it. Little did I know in the beginning stages that bocce, the act of bocce, is one of like the oldest the oldest kind of games known to like mankind, right? Because I was just curious. I'm like, is bocce trademarked, right? Or is bocce patented? Could I even get into the bocce space early on? I'm searching this, and I learned all about how there's pretty much no dated record of when it kind of began. It's always been kind of a game that's been around humanity. So the simple concept of I can throw this closer to that than you can, right? That's it. And it exists across all different cultures all around the world. And so I knew I was working with something that's kind of inherent to us. And I think that the act of play is something that is, from psychologists know that it's almost an essential part of human life. Like we need to be able to kind of explore things through play, and that's something that we do very natively. So that is it's an easy sell, right? It's an easy thing for people to grab onto because we all kind of have that innate desire inside of us to participate, to play. I also think that with the pandemic, as well as with this rise of social media and kind of the complete immersion we have in these virtual spaces, the kind of desire to get together and do something, however low stakes, is something that people really cherish and they appreciate. And you can kind of see that, when you look at a game like cornhole, where you're throwing the bean bags on like the large boards, in the last 5 years, that's become a phenomenon unto its own right. I mean, you have giant events, you have people getting together and playing. And in that side, I've realized that it's an accessibility thing. It's a game that people can play at a competitive level, and you do not need to have, you don't need to have good knees. You don't need to have, great endurance, right? You don't need to have great coordination. You could make that argument. The best players are going to be a little bit more coordinated, hand-eye coordination, but it's accessible to basically way more people than a standard sport would be, right? It's also relatively inexpensive, right? So you're not buying a big set of golf clubs, or you're not buying an expensive bike or something like that. Like it's something that you can kind of pick up and play and start to get good at relatively easily. And not only that, but it's also age agnostic. So with something like cornhole, you have 8-year-olds playing against 58-year-olds, and they're all in the same competition. So I think it's at a time right now where all of these things combined, kind of these like niche sports, as they would call it, or leisure sports, it's just something that people like to do because, it's such a diversion from kind of the constant screens, the TVs, the phones, the talking, the communication. Like, let's stop talking, let's start doing, kind of a thing. And so I think that's altogether what's making this market kind of a little bit ripe for something like Flabocce to come around.
Absolutely. I think that from what I've heard, and I know that you can play indoors, you can play outdoors, and it's super versatile. It's super colorful.
Yeah.
It is fun. People that are playing it just can't stop talking about it. So, what was the biggest challenge you had when you were starting this whole process of creating this vision? And what was the biggest challenge you had along the way?
I think that, as an entrepreneur, that it just seems like there's always the new biggest challenge, right? That you always kind of come across it. I think, to me, one of the largest challenges I had was trying to square the circle on actually making a domestically, if not locally made product, right? This started with the standard China prototyping pipeline, where it was like, this is what it is, this is how it works. This is where you're going to get the cheapest kind of startup costs, and you're going to, manufacture at a decent rate and ship it over from China and then distribute it to your customers. And what turned me off from that early was the delay in time from me communicating an idea to that idea being realized, to me actually seeing in my hands what that turned out to be.
What,
Right? There's kind of a
what was the time? How long was it?
So when you're working with a Chinese kind of prototyper, you're talking about, 8, 9 weeks, right? Like it takes a while for, you to get into their pipeline, for them to do the work, for them to figure out what you're asking for through a game of telephone, right? Because you're speaking over email, you might be speaking over Zoom. I was speaking to a representative who was speaking to a representative, right? So you kind of hope that everything's being translated. and then then another maybe week or two to get the prototype in. So it's like you're hoping things are right, and it made me a little nervous because I am more of a, I like to see every step of the process, right? I like to like see when things are happening. I like to be able to react and say like, oh, if this can happen, then maybe this can happen. And the idea of kind of creating this development process overseas was doable. I did it. I created the prototype, but when I thought about working long term and I thought about putting down a big chunk of money for a mold that I wouldn't know where it was or how it was being used or any of that, kind of gave me some pause at first. And then when COVID happened, the whole shipping, logistics, everything became, for a product like my size, which was basically zero, it was going to be untenable for me to be able to get out from underneath a $3,000 shipping fee on 1,000 units, right? And that's just to get products here. It's like I'm not making things that are selling for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Like every dollar, every quarter, every 5 cents kind of in my cost of goods counts, right, to my final thing. So to make that formula work, it just seemed like it wasn't the right time. And so that kind of turned me off the idea. And I spent the next few years kind of not, I was working, I was doing other things. We were moving, we were doing a lot of things, but the puzzle I wanted to solve was how can I make an American made product here, right? Like I want to just do it where and I literally told this to my wife. I said, my dream is I've got a little Flabocce factory in the garage. You know what I mean? Like I'm out there tinkering and making these things the way I want to make them and I have control over everything. And at one point I was even looking at the cost to manufacture. I got quoted some really ridiculous startup fees from larger injection molding companies here in Michigan who deal with large automotive contracts, right? And so I'm like, well, if I'm going to pay them that much just to set up, I might as well buy an injection molder myself and teach myself how to use it. But with all that comes continued learning curve and continued cost and things like that. So I was kind of at a standstill. And that's when I came across ENC Plastics here in Traverse City, which was just a small, one-man shop of an injection molding and CNC lathing company, a fabrication company that was just off the map because, my great friend now, Ed Brown, he wasn't into big SEO. He had acquired this company. He was an employee. He had acquired it. He wasn't sitting there looking at things from the modern aspect. He had his network, he had his clients, so he wasn't putting himself out there. It was only me stumbling across his actual building that made me find his
Oh,
capabilities.
sorry.
Right. So that's what said, okay, now I have it. Now I don't, it's not my garage, but it could basically be my garage. I can drive 10 minutes.
It, the man upstairs, I guess, I think that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
What a great, great find. And
And
next door.
yeah, and what's really great about it is that it's not only convenient, but it's also more eco-friendly, right? I'm able to order smaller batches at a time. We're able to like not I don't have to maximize a large order and try to plan inventory. I can order smaller batches. We're not shipping things across the globe just to be shipped again. So like the amount of carbon footprint on every shipment is way lower. Um, it supports local business and it allows me to innovate more. So like I can talk to Ed and say, hey, can we try these colors or can we try something like this? And it's quick. And so I can react quicker. I don't have to hold a lot of inventory. Like everything is so much easier when you can do this.
Not
The
about tariffs.
Yeah, well now, and exactly. I mean, I wasn't even what's funny, Rose, is that was already a thing when I started this. So I started this idea in 2019 and I had to kind of navigate the idea of, oh, what's happening with these China potential China tariffs and things like that, and would it apply to the toy segment or would it apply, what segment would I be in? And now I'm not really worried about any of that. And in the same time, it's just making my life a lot easier in terms of like to put it as brief as possible in terms of risk, in terms of like mental risk. I don't feel the pressure, right? When you put a large order in China, and I have good friends and people who have had experiences where you don't know what you're getting until you open those boxes, and when you open those boxes, like you're deep in it at that point. You know what I mean? So this has been a really great way to be a young product, to be able to feel good about every step of the process and see things happen as they happen. And Yeah, it's all around great. I mean, to listeners, I can't recommend enough investigating in local industry. If you're doing something in the physical space, there are a lot of people out there that have great expertise that can really help you, like, execute on your vision, and you're not limited to just what you can find online or what some of these large kind of um, firms try to force you to do. You can find a way, but it just takes a little bit more shoe leather, as they say. You got to be out there kind of figuring it out, you know.
There and what's going on. So talking about, the business aspect, and you mentioned that your colleague that has the injection mold machine, he did an acquisition, and now he owns his business there, and I'm sure he has, you said he had his ideal clients, and so he wasn't out there looking. But then you came along. That makes me wonder, who is your ideal client?
My ideal client for Flabocce.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, it can vary, right? I love getting stories from all different walks, right? As they say, there's a thing called like kind of customer avatars. I don't know if you're familiar with kind of customer avatars, but when you're planning on selling something, it's like who is this person? Like create this character, right? Who is this avatar that is this person that's going to want your product or have the most fun with your product? And I ended up coming up with like five, and they're varied, right? Like there's like there's the tailgate champions, right? The people who are always getting together, before the game or like on the weekends, kind of like that have all the gear, that love being together, love being, engaging with each other, love having a beer and playing a game, right? Like, and that extends from college kids all the way up to, your late 50s kind of guys, right? Like those guys and girls are awesome. They're kind of the core, the people that just love playing games for the sake of play. But then also you have your kind of your parents, right? Your parents that just want, you know, either a moment of peace from their kids, or they want to be able to offer their kids something that isn't just like an app on their phone and things like that. And I've just from those two segments, I have people sending me messages and videos and photos of the game being played, all the time. And kids absolutely love the game. The kids that are 4 to 7 really love the idea of, the concept of the rules. Like this has to be closer than this to score. You use the measuring tool to see who's closer, at the act of play. Like they really, really love it. Younger kids, just younger than 4, just love the concept of these rubbery, soft, colorful hexagons. They love seeing them kind of fly around. They love just kind of stacking them on the ground and playing with them. So they're engaged even at that level, even though they might not be playing the game. And then, up from there is you've got teachers, right? You've got teachers with a bunch of kids that might get stuck inside for a day of recess, right? If we don't, for those of us that, had those indoor recesses, I think about myself being that 8-year-old, like stuck in the classroom on a rainy day or a day that's too cold here in Michigan, and just wanting something to do inside. And we would never be able to kick a ball around in the classroom or play something like that. But I will guarantee you that, we would be allowed to play something like this. So this is kind of for the 8-year-old me that, kind of got stuck in those environments that wanted to still play a game that wasn't, a board game or something like that. So yeah, so my ideal client is anyone who just likes to play, and that really does extend through all of us,
Yes, it really does, and that's a very, very good answer. And I can tell you've done your research in all of these different personas, but that at the same time you're making it super fun. Every summer we have parties we live out on a lake down here in Cadillac, and we have parties, and they bring the cornhole, they play the horseshoes, but that's always for the adults. I'm glad that you have that to offer, and we'll definitely be playing Flabocce this summer for sure, for sure.
I
So
love it.
what's your most memorable Flabocce moment?
Yeah, there's been a couple. Some of the more memorable ones have been just with my immediate family. I mean, I've got some pictures of, my parents live up here as well, and so just being together with them, in a summer kind of night out on the grass, being able to play with them, and just the idea that we're playing this game that that I made up, but it's like a real thing, and we're all getting to kind of experience the thing that I'm trying to create, right? And just as I get older, you realize just how precious those moments kind of are, right? To just be able to spend those, summer evenings with your parents, just kind of playing this goofy thing and having some laughs. And that's something that, as I go through my promotional pictures and my well of all the pictures of things that I've been doing with Flabocce, those are some of the pictures that I cherish the most because they're just great moments in time. As I try to write a thank you note to every customer that orders. So when you get an order, you might receive a thank you note. You should receive a thank you note from me. And one of my favorite things to say is like, I really hope that this just brings you some laughs and some memories, because that's really what the act of kind of play is really all about. It's just about joy and connection. And, those moments are some of our most memorable. The other is a couple times I've had where just in a speaking to the ease of the gameplay, um, I was playing with my sister was in town and she had a friend, and it was a classic. The friend like tried it a couple times and didn't get it and was like, "This game sucks." Right? I don't like this game. Right? Like or I suck, or I don't like this game. But she was just anti it. And then I swear to you, on her next shot, it was a perfect shot. It was basically when you're aiming at this white target, a perfect shot is where you can cover this exactly. It's very rare. It's like a hole in one in golf. You can always get close. You might have a little bit of the white sticking out, but to really do a perfect shot, she did it. And I was and everyone stopped. It was like, "Oh my God, like you just perfect shot." And she was like, "Woo!" And she loved it, right? And so like it was that transition of just someone who was kind of anti or kind of confused by it to becoming a big fan and getting a big rise out of it. And so like that kind of a moment just is a reinforcer of how I want to get this game out in the world, because it's like I was someone who always was on the sidelines. I wasn't a big athlete. I wasn't super coordinated. And so I was kind of hesitant to like get into something because of how, I might look bad, or I might be bad at it and it would be embarrassing or whatever. Whereas this game is something to where you don't have to have any experience. You can have a lot of fun your first time out, right? And that was even proven recently. We had a tournament in town, and the two teams that were in the finals out of a 16 team tournament were teams that showed up that I twisted a lot of arms, right? I'm like, you got to try this out, come play in this tournament. And they both were teams that had never played until that day, and they were there in the finals. So the person that won this tournament and won, $100 was a person that before that day had never known or played this game, right? And so those kind of things just keep me really engaged, because that's what this is all about. This is about creating something that is just hyper inclusive, super fun, and just good for everybody.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like a great journey so far. So do you have any other new products, follow-on events, collaboration, anything that's going to kind of dovetail from this process and that you've built?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are right now I'm in a mode of kind of reconfiguring some product offerings. I'm trying to make a less expensive entry set. So one without the tiebreaker tool, which is the rope tool that comes with the sets right now. It's something that you definitely can enhance your game with, but it's not a deal breaker if you don't have it. But we're also looking at creating a mini, something that's even smaller than these. These guys are about 7 inches across. So they're still super portable. But, we think it would be fun to have something maybe a little smaller, something you could play like tabletop, or, have even a lower entry price point. And then we're looking at, various enhancements, right? So from, a deck of modifications or power-ups that you could have. So you draw a card and you get these particular power-ups on your game, or you have these challenges, you can only do this as opposed to, throwing it standard. Those kind of things. But really, it's just about creating value within the space. And so right now, I do have to, as a product developer and now being a founder, you have to kind of reel in the thing that you like doing the most so you can focus on the things that you might be a little less experienced in. And so right now it's like I got to reel in my product development, tendencies so I can focus more on, all right, how can I maximize our awareness? What does a solid, marketing strategy look like? How are we going to, be making good ads that actually turn value? So that's really where we're at, leading into Q2 of this year.
I'll follow you, but that takes a lot of discipline, and I take my hat off to you there. Keep going with that. So, it sounds like you've turned this idea into it started out as an idea, kind of an accident idea, and then you turned it. I can tell you're super passionate about it now, which is so inspiring to me, and I'm sure to everyone watching. So, what would you say to another person that doesn't have the courage to take that giant step of actually going for it? What would you say to them
I would
to,
say I would say this. I mean, I came into the movie, came in from kind of the movie and entertainment industry. Like that was my background. And when I was there, everybody wanted to make a movie. Everybody wants to make a movie, right? It's like that's kind of like a thing, it's just like, oh, I want to make this movie. But not a lot of people wanted to write. They wanted to kind of write a little bit of a script, but then they wanted to make this movie. And the cheapest thing to do is to write, right? It's the most expensive thing to do is to kind of make the movie. And so the way I approached making this product was like that. I just kept writing. I mean, it was about, does this make sense? Does this make sense? And it didn't. And I waited until it did, right? I didn't just say, I need to make this. I'm doing this now. Let's go. It has to happen now. It was like, well, I like this. This is cool. But right now, the things aren't good. Right. So when the shipping thing was crazy with COVID, it was just like, this isn't the time. Right. Even though I had the idea and I had the prototype, I'm like, this isn't it just yet. So I would say to people that don't have the courage is to keep writing, right? Like to keep sticking with it. It's not about feeling like, oh, I'm scared. It's like, that's okay. It's okay to be scared. I'm scared all the time, but keep working at it, right? Keep putting the details together. Keep doing the things that are free because what you're scared of is the risk of, you know, putting all your life savings into it or stopping working or doing these things that are risky inherently. Whereas what's free is the ideation and the tenacity of continuing to kind of put the pieces together. Because even though you think you have it, you can always figure more things out, right? And so I would just say to to know that it's just because it's not now, it's not dead. Just keep tweaking at it, right? It's good. And secondarily, I just got approached with this quote from Rick Rubin, the phenom of a music producer. And his quote is that, it's speaking about musicians, but it's really just speaking about creations. And that is that once you release something, you are a success, right? Like the human being the human that ideated and actually created and brought something into this world and set it out there, that is a success, right? It doesn't matter how it becomes, if it becomes a household name or if it becomes, the most successful X, Y, or Z on sales or whatever it is. The fact that you brought something to fruition, that is a success. And so that really helps me in my times of, you look at these phenomenal products or these moonshot stories, all the time, and you feel, oh, gee, I only have this. Like, I guess I don't know if I'll ever be successful. When really, right now, according to that metric, I am a success. And it's just right now, I'm just kind of getting to ride the wave and seeing where this thing takes me. So keep working on your idea. It's not dead, it's still there. And that when you do decide to go for it, know that your success point is when you actually create it. It's not how well it is received or how profitable it is, to say the least.
Absolutely right. And I really appreciate that. That's different guidance. I haven't heard that before. Keep writing, keep tweaking it, make sure that, kind of smooth over the rough edges. And
Again, And don't take anybody's opinion for Bible, as they say, right? Like it's everyone has their own advice. I'm a little more risk averse in my kind of natural way of being, and so it might take me a little longer to kind of go for something, but there's a lot of people that will just go for it right out of the gate, hell or high water. So it's your journey to take, but I would just say don't feel that you're not being brave enough, right? Just feel that you're just still searching for the right um I guess the right environment to give you that confidence, right? It's not that you're not brave, you're just still looking for that sweet spot.
So you say you're not risk averse. Did you head out to LA to be in the movies?
It's true. I do audit that. Yes,
Oh,
I went to film school. So I went out there for college and I will say this is a funny thing. I didn't necessarily look at the um I would say the return on investment of a film degree. I just knew that I liked my television program in high school, and I wanted to kind of keep working in this space of technology and creativity, kind of working together. And I found my way out there. And the year I graduated, Time Magazine made an article that was still when Time Magazine was a thing, when there were still magazines, that the top 10 worst degrees you can get, and film was damn near at the top of the list, right? And here I was graduating with a film degree, but I found my way into, a small little teeny job, and I just kept working at it, and it actually worked out really well for me over the long run. So it's tough. It's tough to. I just say that to
I
kind of
got
take.
Lottie at home. I've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
Smith. I've got her picture up on my wall. I love her. And
yeah,
I've got his Tony Horton, and I've met Tony and appreciate his work. And I know they can't do it alone. And now I know someone who was behind the scenes help producing what they were doing.
yeah.
Um, I just think that's fantastic. And that does take courage and it is risk, but it sounds like you take calculated risks and it sounds
Yes.
like you do your homework. You don't just jump in and see what happens. You actually are thoughtful and methodical about before you commit.
Right. And in the entrepreneurial journey, right, it's there's always the talk about the MVP, right? The minimum viable product. Like how can you test this theory, right? And I was lucky enough to be testing the theory with basically the same object, right? Because I manufactured an object. So I was already kind of like, I didn't have this idea of like, what if I had a hexagon that was kind of rubbery? I already had kind of the MVP in my hand when I had the idea. So I was able to kind of jump that stage of that early prototyping. I kind of already knew what I was dealing with, and then it was just like, let's just refine this thing. Because that is really the key. It's like I wouldn't have gone forward with this if I didn't have people that were having no fun playing this, right? It was like constantly like, hey, is this good? Like, is this fun? They're like, yeah, this is fun. This is cool. A lot of people were like, I don't know how you're going to, make money on it or sell this thing. This isn't my space. The game space isn't something that is top of the list of most entrepreneurs. So there was a little bit, it was a little harder to find my way into some mentorship with some of those points. But yeah, I would just say find a way to create your MVP. Like take those calculated risks, but just test as much as you can, as rudimentary as you can, right? Like if you have to make, cardboard, whatever, do it. Just kind of really get your mind into that space of like, let's see what this thing can be. And it could become, a reality, or it might not. But the act is really what's important. Is just kind of going through the process.
Absolutely, going through the process. So if we want to buy one, I bet everyone's like, okay, enough, enough, enough. I want one. How do they get to purchase one?
Yes. So it's flabocce.com. So FLABOCCE.com. I would assume we can put a link when we post this guy. Yeah. So there's going to be a Michigan Innovation 20% off on this link. So it's going to be called Innovation 20 is going to be the code, and when this is posted, it'll be there. But just use code Innovation 20, and you'll get 20% off your order.
Okay, thank you so much on behalf of me and my audience. We really appreciate you. And I would love to have you back in about a year to see how Flabocce has changed, grown, your venture. I'm sure it's going to be nothing but spectacular. Would you like to join us in a year or so?
Oh, count me in, Rose. I will be, and let's do it in person. I was really hoping to make that happen this time, but I really hope to do it in person in a year. We'll have a lot of fun.
But I love seeing all your inventory. That
Yeah.
really deal for me. I don't mind, but you're more than welcome to come on down. And I wanted you to take a look at my studio because I could use your expertise and guidance on maybe some different cameras and that kind of.
Yeah.
So it'd be a lot of fun to have you down.
We'll innovate together. It'll be great.
Awesome, very cool. Well, I've totally enjoyed this discussion about Flabocce. I know that I'm picking up a couple before the day's over because summer's right around the corner.
Yeah.
And with that, do you have any final words for the team out there, our audience?
No, I mean, I would just say, if you are in the, northern Michigan space, that to just really try to tie into our startup community here. It's just the most welcoming, dynamic group of people. So if you have an idea and you want to take a little bit of time, I will promote it till the end of the earth. But Tuesday mornings, over here in Traverse City, the Office of Possibilities, look it up. Definitely worth a visit, and I wouldn't be at this stage, of my company really without it. So just big ups to the wonderful people in Northern Michigan that are making things and innovating and doing things every day.
I completely concur. That's where I met Jack at the Office of Possibilities, or like we call it, Oops. And
Yep.
we meet Tuesdays at 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. at the Alluvion at the Common Space, Common Ground, now the Grove. And
Yes.
so that's so right. And thank you for bringing that up. Well, with that, we're going to close out this session of the Michigan Innovation Podcast and say bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you, Rose.
See you later.